I'm still Nasty Neal.
And
I remain Terrible Troy.
And this is Annabelle Lecter.
And we're joined by Larry Fessenden of Blackout and many other cool things.
Well,
good to have you
is
back.
any of this working?
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Yeah.
Can you hear us? Uh-oh.
So now we can hear him, but he can no longer hear us.
Oh, wait.
Is
He's
it good?
back.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Yes. We are now good.
Of course, now I can't hear you, so that's all.
Oh,
But it's
no.
fine. Let me fix that.
All right.
Should I talk more about the nuns?
Yeah, you can talk about some nuns if you want.
I don't know. Let me see.
Yeah, well,
I lost the page.
Larry Fessenden's Blackout is coming out. Uh-oh, now I hear the echo again.
Oh, man.
Oh, come on. Let's see. Does it work now?
We hear you fine.
We hear you fine.
But we echo.
Do you have earbuds or a headphone of any kind?
Yeah. All right.
We're putting the man to work. Troy's getting attacked by a cat.
Yes.
Aww.
That- Warlock Sand. Hello.
Let's see.
Yeah.
So,
Then it'll be perfect right here in a sec.
yeah.
See, I
We're
can already
talking
tell.
about the Devils, and Neil was liking it. Troy was hating it.
Yeah, should we ask Larry what he thinks of the Devil?
Yes.
Let's
Let's see.
think I will be the odd man out on that one. Then.
Right now, how's it? We can hear you. No echo.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear you perfectly.
What?
All right, let's do that.
All right, now we have Larry
I
here.
usually like to go au naturel, if you know what I'm saying.
I understand.
I understand. Modern world. It's fine.
But we appreciate you have to put on all this paraphernalia.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my God.
Doing what it takes.
All the kids.
Yeah, well, thanks, guys. It's nice to be here one way or the other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always great having you.
So before we talk about Blackout, before you came on, we were talking about nunsploitation movies, and we were saying, Annabelle and I are fans of what was the movie we were talking?
Ken Russell's The Devils.
Yes, but Troy is not. So, are you a fan of Ken Russell's The Devil?
It's been a minute, so I don't know. Yeah, I prefer that too. What was the alternative?
That's true. I don't know what the alternative is, but the alternative.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, are you including like The Nun?
Oh,
It's
no.
much better than The Nun, I would say.
No.
I'm
Yeah,
saying it's
exactly.
Nun up there. Any Nun fans?
Yeah, there's an
Now we're
article
getting
put
into-
out. What's that?
Go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say we were. I was reading through this 5 nunsploitation horror films that are on this week because this new nun thing came out, and they're all older.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would have even Alucarda. It's Mexican horror.
Good.
Dark Waters is old. So just some stuff. So it sounds like
First, the Japanese movie or the Korean, whatever. Yeah.
I don't know. They all seem like they're
Yeah.
from like the 60s and 70s. But at any rate, now we've got you. Nuns can go on the shelf.
Well, nuns used to be scary. Like there's in Repulsion by Roman Polanski. You know, he looks out the window and the nuns are playing basketball. So it's an old trope from the 60s, like that nuns were scary, because I think a lot of people were truly going to Catholic school, and now it's more of a callback, and so I don't know how much it hangs, but obviously the nun, whatever the hell that thing was popular. So I don't know. It's
People dig them. So oddly enough, earlier in the show, Bill Oberst Jr. was on, and he had a Wolfman lapel pin, and it kind of brought this whole show together. It was like it's a Wolfman themed shows.
I love it.
It wasn't planned.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's true.
Very true. Yeah.
Troy has always got the voice of sort of the Yoda of the show. In my opinion.
I like that. I could live with that. I could definitely live with that.
Troy's recently retired, so he's going to be on the show more often now.
Oh, fantastic! Well,
Gonna
that is
stay on for weeks at a time, you know.
blessings to all of us. Yeah.
So Blackout's coming out April 12th on VOD. This is very exciting. We got to see it at Brooklyn Horror Film Festival, which was a great time. So first of all, for people not aware yet, give them an idea of what Blackout is about.
Blackout is sort of my jam is to take these beloved classic old movies, for example, Wolfman, from the black and white movies from Universal, and look at the stories again and update them into the modern world. So it's not like I'm doing cover songs, but I love werewolves, and we have a long history all into the 80s movies and so on, and so everyone should have a hand at a werewolf film, and that's what I've done. And so it's a story of a small town in contemporary America. They're divided very well because we are divided, and so that's the story I tell. And there's a werewolf involved. Some people say not enough werewolf. Some people, there's many ways to take the movie in, but this is what I care about. Is sort of the idea of these horror tropes that I love so much, living in conjunction with reality, which is almost like the way my brain works. I walk down the street, I see, like, is there a Frankenstein movie in there? Is there a Frankenstein monster among us? So that's what I try to do. And as I say, it doesn't lean fully into the genre. So it is a special sauce that not everybody loves, but that's what I do.
So since you talk about, loving the Universal monster movies, wanting to do, them in modern day. So how many times throughout the years did you like, I'm going to make my own werewolf movie? When did Blackout actually start in your mind?
I know it was on Tales from Beyond the Pale.
That's true. I did this, a segment of this piece was one of our audio dramas. Thank you. Tales from Beyond the Pale. Almost the same dialogue. It was that critical moment when you ask your friend to kill you. What would that be like? You see, I always look to these stories and say, what is a moment that would just be really weird to stage in a fairly straightforward way? Because naturally, you watch an old movie, it's a little mannered, and you're like, yeah, but that's a really weird situation. What would that be like? So that's an example of how I enter into these storylines. And you just look at the dilemmas that the characters experience. Sometimes they have a problem with their dad. Sometimes they're, or whatever. Or they want to get married. Like you look at Jekyll and Hyde. And he wants to get married, but he's got this little zombie in the lab. So with the werewolf thing, I had focused on that. I'm also like, so you're trying to drive a car and your moon is full. How would that go? So I just like these kind of just asking those basic questions. So next thing you know, I'll have a werewolf shopping. And even that does suddenly, I'm like, note this up. That's anyway, that's the idea. And then to play it out and actually become good yourself so we can relate. And be like, all right, there's an otherness, especially horror people. We live with that otherness. You go through your daily life and you're just really aware of this other thing. And I would argue that even the normal person is aware of death and some of the darker themes, but they suppress it. They don't really think about it. So I try to make movies that bring that right into the daylight, as it were, or the moonlight. So that's what I'm up to. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, I think that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, what about Alex Hurd as the lead Charlie? What was it about him that, this is the guy to play this character?
Well, I had met him on a film that I produced that was actually directed by my son, and it was Alex was was a World War I period piece, and he had a hat on, the whole thing, and they were in a foxhole. That's the name of the movie, and I found him. First of all, he's just a great committed actor, but in behind the scenes, we were chatting. We were talking about his father, and his father is a badass. He is William Hurt's son.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the actor, we met some, I don't know what broadcast news, but, us, well, no, I mean, a senior moment, but altered states is what I'm trying to say.
Yep.
So, and I just I found that interesting, and Alex had his own bout with booze, and just like he was a really layered fellow. But he said that he came into acting through loving horror movies and the old Lon Chaney movies and this and that. So in the back of my mind, I said, "Wow, that's interesting." And there's something about his vulnerability and damaged qualities that is a Wolfman. That's the character that Lon Chaney played. That is in that story. You know, even Benicio del Toro also shows up in the modern version, and it's a damaged character. And I think by any account, when you tell that story, you're suggesting that person was vulnerable to the dark side, or I don't know, got bit for a reason, and so on and so on. This is how my mind works, just if you're tracking it. So he just seemed like, oh my God, I can't believe I've met my Wolfman. So that's how I cast it, and when we made the movie from there.
I love that there's pictures of them in the movie.
Yeah.
There's actually pictures of him.
Yeah, well, that was, of course, a great privilege. And the truth is that we were working on the movie for a year at least, and then the dad did die, and so that's in the movie. I didn't suddenly write it. It's because all my movies have sort of stories about patriarchs and the things that our society sets up, and then we all have to react to it. I mean, I think that's an important theme in my films, is like, we're all dealing with the terrible sins of our fathers, not our own fathers, because maybe my dad was a lovely guy, but societally, you know, whatever sins have brought us to here. So I'm interested in that. And then, of course, personally, people have problems with their ancestry and so on. But there was Alex going through this, so it was just very poignant. And he brought that to the storyline as well.
There's something I brought up at Annabelle actually right after we watched it in Brooklyn, and I'm not a religious guy at all, maybe the opposite, but I always think it's like a big cop-out when the religious person in a movie is the villain. They're always, every time you see them, they're always going to be demonic or pedophile or something. But the preacher in the movie is like a good guy, and I actually like that about the movie a lot.
I love that you say that, because John, I don't think it's really exposing him in any way, but he's a great actor. He's been in maybe 15 of my movies, Glass Eye Pictures, and done great work at every level. He'll carry the spear, or he'll be the lead, and he's a genuinely religious fellow, and we have great times talking about that. And you know, the thing is if you're not judgmental, whether you're on the atheist side or agnostic or whatever these other nuances are, I love somebody who follows a sense of purpose and spiritual sense, and I believe strongly in morality and our obligation to our fellow citizens and brothers and sisters. So I can commune very easily with a religious person until they start wielding it like a club. That's the problem.
Right.
But the point is he was very appreciative that I didn't condescend to the man of the cloth. And so I appreciate that you mentioned that, Neil, because that was my purpose, to say, you know, these are actually important people in our society when they're articulate. And, you know, let's face it, when they're a little bit hip to the fact that he says the greatest line in the movie. He says to the werewolf, he says, well, you know, you're saying your problem is fantastical, but I believe in an all-knowing God. So I think I know a little about that. I would love a priest, and I've met such people that are modern enough to know that they are engaged in something that is out of the realm of the modern. And yet they're engaged in another level, and they can be accountable.
Yeah. And also what you said about, I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but it was just like when you said, like, unless someone wields it over you, but I mean, a lot of atheists will hold it over people. It's almost their own religion.
Absolutely. We got problems on both sides now. I mean, that's a unique part of our history. Now both sides are fucking batshit crazy, meaning the left and the right. And I just want to escape under a hole. So what do? You make horror pictures.
Sorry, what were you about to say, Annabelle?
Well, I was kind of going to get into that. I really appreciate that you brought that into the movie because of what Neil's talking about. That some people just get offended at the idea that someone who is religious can actually be a decent person. It's like,
no, that was the role of religion in our societies, and well, we can get political. I'm not afraid of it, but the fact is that Martin Luther King, obviously a upstanding citizen by many accounts, he drew from his religious background. A lot of the great thinkers and great speech makers drew on religious tenets. I think it's a little paranoid to say we can't reference that at all, when in fact it's really just sort of a structure. Clearly there's a universal truth, with or without the magic dust, about morality and kinship and camaraderie and community. And so this is the problem when you start nitpicking, like, where did that idea come from? And if you determine it's from a religious sect and then it has to be rejected, you're lost. You're sort of rejecting the history of humanity. So, but look, we're horror fans, and so we understand mythology. We understand how important it is. We understand werewolves, and tangentially, that is about religion. It's about mythology. We understand Zeus and, I don't know, whatever, the dudes with the throwing lightning bolts and all these wonderful guys. The point is, honestly, if you really were to analyze my films, who has the time? But they're really about religion, our mythologies, what we believe in, and where reality betrays us. Even Blackout is about, like, are the silver bullets going to work? They always say things like, well, that's what it's supposed to do, right? So they're just like following, like, so you say you're a werewolf. Okay. Is it true, or are you just an alcoholic? So I made you the silver bullets because you asked me to, but is that going to work? So I'm always playing with meaning, hopefully in a playful way. It's not heavy-handed. I'm not telling you should believe in one thing or another. I'm just saying, is any of the realities we build, are any of these storylines true? And yet, luckily, we get to watch a werewolf movie. So
that's all it really matters. Yeah.
That's all that matters in the end. That's my truth.
You said some people said there's not enough werewolf in the movie, but the werewolf looks great. You do see a cool werewolf kill right at the beginning of the movie, and some great claws. And how about designing what your werewolf is going to look like?
So I made the werewolf with my pals Brian Spears and Peter Garner, and of course their team. I'm not going to list everybody, but everybody was so appreciated. And this is a low-budget movie. I did throw some money at them, so they didn't resent me, because I had to pull them out of Marvel TV shows and whatever. They've made their way in the world. They started pretty much with Glass Eye Picks, my company, and we made so many great movies together. I love them. And it was fun to say, hey, guys, let's do this. Let's make a werewolf movie. So my thing is that I grew up on this comic book called Werewolf by Night, drawn by Mike Plug, who's amazing. And Mike is famous, hopefully, for Werewolf by Night, Tomb of Dracula, Monster of Frankenstein, but he also did all the drawings for The Thing by John Carpenter. So he's been around and he's beloved. Troy knows who he is.
Oh yeah.
He's got great lines, very angular way of depicting. The irony is very much in the tradition of superheroes, that kind of buff physique and angular movement. But I love him in particular. He used to work for, anyway, I won't get into it. But he's a wonderful illustrator, and that comic book, at least the first couple of issues, captivated me. I went to Miramax, the company, years ago, and asked them if I could make Werewolf by Night.
Oh,
Just
that would have been so great.
Well, they said, "Who are you?" We thought, this is funny. Even in the '90s, they said, "We thought you were an independent filmmaker and wouldn't want to come into a studio." I'm like, oh my God, that's because no one will have me, and apparently you guys won't either. So fuck you. But anyway, years later, here I am making a movie for like $45 on the streets of Woodstock. No regrets. So Brian and Peter, we talked about. I wanted the flat-faced werewolf. I know it's something you have to now acknowledge because obviously in the '80s we had the snouts and all the great makeup experiences from Rick Baker and those dudes. But I love I want a Wolfman, maybe not a werewolf. I mean, whatever. I also don't like it when your werewolf turns fully into a wolf.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
It doesn't
That
make.
seems like a cop out.
Yeah, it's not that. The real tension is that you are kind of a man, but you've been consumed by whatever it is. Is it anger or nature or you've lost control, but you're. So I think that's visually what I wanted to convey. And then actually Alex Hurt, he worked out so much that he had the physique of a superhero. And I was like, I don't need to cover this up with some kind of suit with a couple of hairs on it, because you need a lot of money to make every hair perfect. And even for that matter, the suit to conform. So I said, fuck it. I mean, it's a psychological story. I hope you get a good werewolf face. I love it. His claws. He's definitely difficult. He's a difficult guy to have around. But it's still. But you also see the physique in there, the man in there. So it's about, and even on the. I mean, sorry guys, I'll shut up in a second. But it's like.
Yeah, we're going.
It's the idea that, I put the werewolf on the poster as we went on, and, I'm working with a company that had certain hopes as well. And so they're like, let's be bold. And so my point is, like, this isn't a movie where I'm going to reveal the werewolf. No, that's a great other kind of movie. This is a movie about what it's like to be a werewolf. So I'm going to say, this is the guy. And then let's work. Let's enjoy the film from there and sort of try to understand what he's going through and so that was sort of amazing.
It's not just the story of him being like a monster. He has a life. This guy has a life, and there are villains in that life.
Yeah.
Just rewatched it again. I love it when he's got that guy. I won't get into detail, but he's got that guy with the handcuff. That scene is amazing. But yeah, all of these different things that are going on, and I think it's so. I'm glad you mentioned about him being having this face that's more like a man, because we're not focused on, wow, this is a cool werewolf, that's cool looking. It's about this is a person.
Yeah, you're almost like, wait, I mean, and then when he goes to, let's just remain vague, but visit his girlfriend, it's like, is this just a bad breakup scene, or is this a werewolf scene? I wanted to tread that line, and I appreciate we'll call it the handcuff moment, but the whole idea of weaponizing, like, what if you were a werewolf? You'd say, I wonder what I can do with this. Create a circumstance where I get a little revenge or whatever. So all those were the ideas, like, because most of the great werewolf movies have been made, and I know there are more to be filmed, and that's wonderful too, but this was just my angle.
Yeah, you want to do something different with it. Talk about great. I like Jeremy Holmes' characters reaching out for help, and at the same time, you see the claw reaching back, and I was like, I appreciate that. And honestly, the other thing about movies is, the reason I love movies is the craft, and just as I love that you cite that, because it's just the counterpoint of a human hand coming this way, and then you see the claw this way, and there's something delicious about that. It couldn't be. There's no special effects. It's just
your brain goes, oh shit, and that's because of the language of film, because the two images are opposed to each other. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's my appreciation of the just of film, and that's why I still love it and defend it. You know, I'm famous for bitching about TV and my good TV shows, but TV is just an endless wash of content, and they're often that you're following the story, which is great. But I'm not a story guy. I'm a texture guy. I want to see the craft, not to watch craft, but just the way a story can be told, the juxtaposition of fast cutting and slow cutting and this and that. So those are the things that interest me. It's why I'm very happy in the independent world without my budgets, because, you know, in the end, even with a lot of money, it's still the choice of lenses, and it's that simple thing of montage, putting the images together. So I just love, Neil, that you mentioned something so simple as that. It's something delicious about it, because you're like, ooh, that's so creepy. Because it's the human hand and the naughty hand.
Yeah, it's more of an we've seen scenes where people reach into just like an unknown hole, and it's almost like that idea, but you're actually seeing the other side of that hole while you're reaching into it.
It's fun. Yeah, it's fun. I mean, you know, there are better filmmakers who can really tweak that. But I still love the challenge of trying to get those moments. You know, that's why I always celebrate Hitchcock. He always said, I can play the audience like a fiddle, you know, because he just knew.
He wasn't lying either. You know?
Yeah, he wasn't lying. He was it was fun.
Yeah. When Annabelle and I were in LA recently, we went to what's the theater we went to that they played old Hitchcock movies, and it's a Tarantino theater.
A Tarantino theater.
Oh yeah, sweet. Yeah.
And they showed his first talkie, which I'd never seen before.
Oh, wow.
I can't say it was great. Yeah, Hitchcock's first talking film. I can't say it was great, but it was just cool to watch it.
Yeah, and you could recognize, right, the technique. Yeah,
and apparently, because then we looked after, like, apparently they started filming it as a silent film, and then like the technology advanced while they were making it, and then he decided to make it into a talkie. And
well, is it the Lodger? The Lodger?
I can't remember the name of it. I honestly don't remember the name.
Did it have the? I mean, he's so insane. Did it have the feet pacing on the ceiling? Because he did this scene in a movie called The Lodger, which is a Jack the Ripper story, but it was silent. Okay, yeah, it was still silent, and so in order to show that people could hear the footsteps above him, he had a glass ceiling created, and you could see the feet. So you're watching it, but you're like, oh, I know that sound of like chalk. So whatever, he was so cool. Bananas.
I know what I wanted to say. It was because it's very strange, the woman's voice, and then we found out that the woman like had a really like a foreign accent, and so they had someone doing her voice, but they did it on set, so someone was offset talking for her. As opposed to like, you know, adding it in later. And I was like, this is really just a very, very, I guess they didn't know what to do at the time, but it was very, very weird and interesting. I can't say it was good, but it was interesting to find out about.
I love it. Yeah. And that's the old cliche that, you know, necessity breeds all kind of weird shit. You know, they couldn't quite figure out the technology, so they're going to do this. And then you're like, that was haunting.
Yeah, there was something just odd about it that someone else was like doing the voice and they're directly offset.
And now you remember it.
Yeah, I'll remember that.
We're talking about it.
Yeah. I thought it was cool when we saw the movie in Brooklyn, and then you did the Q&A after, and someone asked about some specific shots in the movie, and you're like, oh, that's like a shot in, I can't remember what movie they said, but like a classic werewolf movie. And you had brought up that it's not necessarily like, oh, I want to put this shot in my movie. This is just stuff that's like ingrained in your mind, like different shots.
Yeah.
And just your love of film is just there. And so it's
not
like, I'm going to do this. It's just, this is a shot that looks cool to me, and maybe I'd seen it before, but maybe I didn't. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a really delicate relationship between my memories and then sort of acknowledging this is an homage shot. But I don't really like going in with the whole idea that I'm going to nudge and wink at the audience. That's sort of what I'm resisting when saying, oh, that's the shot from Poltergeist. It's like, all right, you're absolutely right. Like I have that in one of my old films called Wendigo. The kid goes up and touches the TV. But it came out of wanting the kid to go and touch the TV, not because there are ghosts inside, but because he's like, what, there's no, internet up here? Or, so it was a whole other context. But as I staged it, I was like, oh, well, this is obviously a poltergeist thing, and that's fun too. But as I say, I don't want to be sitting there going to the audience, look, I'm so clever, and you remember this one, don't you? And furthermore, I can double you there. So I want the audience in the moment, in the movie itself. But I think what I was probably saying in the Q&A is like, but I grew up on all these movies. And so even on set, I'll say, oh, we're going to do the taxi driver shot. If I mount a camera on the front of a car, well, that just reminds me of a technique used in Taxi Driver. I'm not referencing Taxi Driver in that moment. That wouldn't be helpful. So
yeah, it's something someone created that you are using to make your own movie.
Yeah, and it's a technique. If you have a steady cam, am I going to call it the shining shot? No. Although if I am going down a hallway and somebody's driving a big wheel, maybe that's the shining shot.
We don't have the video of this, but we actually did do that once. Annabelle and I went down the
convention.
Hallway. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It was the shining shot.
Yeah. I had him in front of me doing this.
Oh, perfect.
We did not have a tricycle.
No.
Well, that's a whole budgetary thing. I'm completely very sympathetic.
Exactly. This was before I stopped drinking, and I did so. Let's be honest, I'd still do it today, so I don't know what that is.
I'd like to see the before and the after series of videos.
There's quite. I don't know. We might get like canceled on some of the old ones. I don't know.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you can blame the booze. It's all good.
They are much different. We still have fun though.
We still had fun, but it was ridiculous.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not in a bad way.
Speaking of which, what's Troy doing? He's off like
I don't know.
He's like,
5 dogs.
He does have, he's got 3 dogs, 2 cats, and a tortoise. So they may have.
I know. The tortoise got away. He's running after him.
You know what? His tortoise did get away, and they went and found it. And it I don't even know how this happened, but it got out and it ran away to like a lake nearby, and I don't know how they ever found it, but they did find it.
I feel bad for it. He was like, I was so close.
I know. I'm like, well, maybe did he really want to be in the lake?
Right? Yeah. Just let him be.
Doesn't he get like hamburger from Troy and all those things?
Troy, bring him back.
We must be talking about Hal.
Let him back.
So when I was born, my brothers were so upset that my parents gave them a turtle, and it was this big, and 12 years later it was this big, and he ate hamburger, and he wasn't named Hal, but my brother's name is Hal, just so you know. The turtle's name was Coco.
Okay.
So there you go.
Ours is a marginated tortoise, and so she's probably about yay big. She's about the size of like a dinner plate.
Oh wow,
big.
And and she only eats greens. She was when we first got her. She was the size of a quarter. And I named her Hal named him Hal because he would climb things, jump off. He was like a stunt man. So I'm like, he's like Hal Needham. So he became Hal. And then when we took him to the vet, and they're like, she is really healthy. I'm like, well, how can you tell? They're like, well, the base of the shell, if it's concave, it's a male. If it's flat, it's a female, because if it's a male, it's got to climb, it's got to mount a female. And if, it would just fall off. Otherwise, it can't be a lesbian tortoise, I guess, And so, so she became Allie after that. So she's still Al.
That's lovely. Well, you can call her, you can refer to them as they, and they'll be right up to date, and all will be well. So
exactly. And he had to will it to somebody.
No, they had to. Oh, he had to will it.
To be I think it was to be 150 or something. So
yeah. So the nephews would come over, and they're like, Uncle Troy, how old is Al? Like, about 6. And you're at the time I was 50. Yeah. How long do you think Hal's gonna live? Oh, probably about 100 years.
We're trying to find out if they're going to be.
Yeah, and I'm like, don't down the stairs. There's plenty of time, guys. You'll have plenty of time.
All right. So is that the only thing in your will? Is there anything else, or are we going to get fucking Hal?
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah. One will get the comic collection, the other one will get Al.
Yeah, oh my God. Uncle Troy, you're worthless.
He's heard that before. Yeah, just by me.
That can be your threat. Like, you're going to be the kid. Hey, if you don't shape up, you're going to be the one that gets Hal.
Yeah, it's true. It's like you're going to get the comic or the fucking turtle.
So, over the last, a lot lately, we've had a lot of, we call them Larry Fessenden alumni, people who started with you and making their own stuff now. And cool. What's that feeling like for you to okay, there's someone who, was helping me with stuff, and now they went out into the world and they're making their own films.
Fantastic, man. It makes me feel like I've done my job, I really come into it with the hopes of inspiring young filmmakers find their voice, feel like they're on to something. I mean, it's not like I'll take anybody. It's usually some encounter. I get a lot of emails, and that's very sweet, and I try to be respectful, but I don't really know. I'm not sitting around trying to analyze what's going to be a hit, who's going to be a keeper. And I know there are many people I probably missed, but through more one-on-one encounters and so on, and often it's been interns, people have worked for me, they work their way up, but we all find a common language. Often that's why they like Glass Eye, and that's why they want to be involved. So, as I say, there's no formula, and I'm getting older, so I'm less inclined to all this, but my basic thing has always been, I love the impulse to make art that matters, or that connects, or that's personal. I want people to express something real. There's so much crap out there. Not that it's even bad crap, but it's just art for the sake of it. There's no interest. And that's why I find AI so funny. It's like, okay, let me get it straight. So we don't have enough artists and enough people who want to express themselves. Now we need robots to make art because we're so lazy to even make our own art. I mean, I'm sure there's people who engage with AI and they have all the best intentions and they're creative, but I just find the whole premise so dumb. And that's the world I'm not interested in. So what I try to do is just take people who have an impulse and then encourage them to do something in the moment that matters. And that's really difficult because it's trying to express something of themselves. And then the fact that it's in the horror zone means extra credit, but it's not essential. And then I've done what I can for whoever I could. And I love that a lot of people have done well. Many people have done better than me, like Ty West, Kelly Reichert outside of the genre, and Jim Mickle and Jed Wexler. Lots of people doing really great work, but they're also unsung people. And I have always had an affection for unsung artists. I play music with a pal. He's never made it, but he's a great songwriter. We're making a record right now, and so on and so on. As the point is art is an attainable way to handle the anxieties of life, to share and have a community. I think the current distribution experience is troubling, but we can get into all that. Or better yet, let's not. We all know it's a problem. But at its most fundamental, I'm just interested in people feeling like they can express themselves, and I tried to encourage that.
Did you have someone like that for you, or did you have like a certain mentor or mentors?
No, I always say that's why I do it. Because it's not like I'm a sad fellow and I had, teachers that I loved or this or that. But I never quite had that. I had a couple of great producers and I had a couple of other things that really were seminal, and I realized how much it mattered to me to have that support. But I have said in the past, I don't wish anything. As I say, I'm not really leaning into any kind of sad story, but I am saying, I think it's a really important thing to have a mentor. And no, I didn't have one. I'm not recreating something that I'll have passing it on. I'm creating it from the beginning. My parents were lovely. They didn't understand how to help the arts. They were in on the things. So, blah, blah, blah. No sad story here, but.
No, but I like that. I like that. Like, you didn't have someone to help you, guide you to what you end up doing, but now you can,
Yeah, and I think that's what people need, because it's tough. Trying to be creative. I mean, I think a lot of this has changed. Now it's got another vibe, and you can be a Instagram person, or I'm not quite sure. I don't even understand it entirely, because as you can tell, I just like movies. I don't, there's a lot of other things I don't have a TikTok channel, although I can kind of run. I just, I don't know where to begin with all of that.
Yeah.
How to become noticed. I'm interested, believe me, let me be clear, last thought, is just, I'm interested in how humanity is fucking up so badly. So, in the end, my stories are they're not a lecture, they're not a polemic, but they're about like trying to search for meaning. We talked about religion already. This is a very erudite show. But the point is like, I'm interested in the meaning of life, and then how it intersects with monsters and fantasy, and how all those things are our way of groping with reality, which is, let's face it, brutal and indifferent. So then you're like always in a conversation with fantasy. Oh wow, wouldn't it be great if there was like Sauron or whatever the Lord of the Rings shit is? I don't quite know, but there was a big eye and a bad guy and a ring and a little guy, and wouldn't it be also great? And it helps us define the reality. Or what was the fucking whale doing with the Moby Dick? I never understood these stories. But I know they were trying to figure things out, and that's what I thought art was supposed to be, not just like endless TV shows that just go on and on and on.
I think part of that is that people are so scared of the world, that this constant like being entertained and TikTok and all this constant is because people do not want to think about what's actually going on.
Yeah, I agree. And, it used to be that art was supposed to be a solace. But, there are a lot of other things that have changed. Like, we don't have any nature to, we're in our phones and in our cities. And maybe you guys live in the country. You're like, fuck the country. I don't know where you are. But the point is that there used to be this thing bigger than us. And for a long time, it was talked about as if it was God. But the reality is we had a relationship to nature and trees and seasons, and there was something sort of beautiful. It gave you a sense of built-in humility. Now everybody just thinks they're cock of the walk. They're dog thing and and they're not paying attention. They don't notice the seasons. So when you talk about climate change, they're like, I don't know, what the fuck? It's either warm or cold. When it's warm, it's what I like.
I turn on the air conditioner. Or
I got my air conditioner. As long as I'm comfortable, that's what matters. And I got my delivery, my shopping, and it's just like, oh my god, what wretched creatures we've become. Just like basically so selfish. It's almost unbelievable. And then, you know, and I don't like this politician. He said that. And oh my God, I can't take it. So I surely do want a big monster to come and stomp on.
I like the punchline.
We deserve it. Did anybody see Shin Godzilla? What a beautiful movie! I was crying.
Yeah, I mean,
Godzilla -1.
Yeah, I loved it. It was my favorite Godzilla movie. That was great.
I kind of agree. I mean, I love to say I don't cry during a lot of Godzilla movies. I was like, by the way, how cool! I mean, I hope you didn't trouble yourselves to watch the Oscars, but they did win, and they brought up their toys to the stage. It was
how cool was that? Yeah,
my favorite thing ever on the planet Earth.
Get those little things, you know, like you look around and you're like, wow, I don't know, shit's going to hell, and then you're like, but then you see something like that, you're like, okay, you know,
that was beautiful.
Yeah, not everything's bad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Troy and I played some Godzilla pinball Tuesday night, which was very fun.
Nice. That sounds like a good,
pretty awesome
time.
Yeah, exactly. My arm, I feel really lame because my arms are sore from playing so much pinball.
That is troubling, man. If that was your exercise, I can tell you, it didn't even register on your step count, so you're fucked.
That's true, actually. I do walk a lot, but I do not play pinball a lot. So it's a really big workout, the pinball.
Oh, shit.
But I also Annabelle and I saw you on the big screen a couple times. So we didn't see you in Blackout. You're not in Blackout, but we did see you in Killers of the Flower Moon. So that was very exciting. And
I didn't even realize it. I was like, oh my God, that's Larry.
Well, congrats for noticing. You know, my friends, I have, one friend, I like to tease her. She saw it and she watched the whole movie and she's like, were you in it?
Oh, no.
That's like, good Lord.
Anyway, you were great.
I guess my hair was combed, excuse me. But I showed my mother a picture from the movie, not even from the movie, but just when I was on set, dolled up with the suit. She's like, well, can we have that on the mantelpiece? Because you look so nice compared to the way you usually look. So, Marty, he really made me look good. Yeah, it's good. My mother liked it.
So, how did that come about? I'm sorry.
Well, I auditioned for several roles, and I did get a couple roles. I was going to be Leo's sidekick. I don't quite know what that means because I've seen the movie a couple times, and I'm not sure.
That is, yeah.
So they wrote him out.
That's true.
Yeah.
We can't get Larry. Forget that.
Oh, on the contrary, I was ready to go down there. I would have been down there for like 4 months. I'm so blessed. They cut the character, and then I was sad, obviously, because Marty means the world to me. But then the movie wrapped, and I was like, I guess that is never going to happen. And then they called and said, well, there's a coda, and we're filming in the Bronx. And I was like, well, that's considerably more convenient. And so then I went up, and it was wonderful because maybe you guys know I have done a radio show, so it was kind of fun. I've done a horror radio show in my own life, and then I'm in a radio play in their thing. And it was just fantastic. I mean, we rehearsed. I mean, this is Hollywood, so it's probably in the movie for 6 minutes, maybe less, 4. But of course, it took 4 days and rehearsals and haircuts and voice training, but speech coaches, everything, every detail was so beautiful. Just the depth. And when a movie costs $200 million, at least you're like, oh well, that's because they're sort of taking care of business and being thoughtful. So it was cool. I mean, I always say to these big filmmakers that I love, I would love to see them make a low-budget movie again because I know they have the chops. But you have to acknowledge that they're in a bigger world and they're getting advice and they're taking care of every detail, and that's beautiful too. My favorite costumes and carefully. So whatever, but the bottom line, never mind all that. Martin Scorsese is an amazing character to be in his presence. He's funny, he's smart, he teases you. He knows who I am, he knows who Ty West is, he knows who Kelly Reichardt is. He's like, I really like The Innkeepers. That's his favorite Ty West movie.
Oh, awesome.
Which is beautiful. And he knows my friend Kelly Reichardt, who's sort of not how to do extra stuff. So he's just fully aware. He knows what I do. He's like, how long is this setup going to take? Larry would have made 3 movies by now. So he understands that I'm a low budget filmmaker that puts a lot of movies out or that's scoops. So just wonderful, just so smart and so engaged in what he's doing.
I'm a huge Scorsese fan, but that makes me like him even more now.
That's awesome.
Well, I'd say when you see those performances, I have a strep throat, so I've been up all night with my sad little voice, and so I just watched The Irishman. I'll tell you, if you're sick, you can watch a Scorsese movie. It'll take you through the whole night, and it's such a great picture.
I love it. I don't understand. There's like some hate for it. I was lucky. I saw it in the theater. It had a real limited release, and
me too. People love to hate. It's not even talking about people. But I'll tell you what, you realize that there's so much love and attention to detail, and those are his peeps. So he's working with his old comrades, Pesci and De Niro. But then, then comes Al just chewing up the scenery. It's also fun, and you just realize this is the thing that I experienced briefly. It's that Marty's creating a real community of collaboration. There's a seriousness, and there's a sense of play, a sense of discovery. He's not indulgent. It's not a Kubrick thing. They're not 80 takes, but you're going to do it, and you can tell he's editing in his mind, and he's like, okay, we got it. We're going to move on. It's just beautiful to watch. You're watching a world-class craftsman. Say that 6 times.
And I read the book, and Joe Pesci really nailed that character, especially when they're older. Really great when he's old, and he's like, he finds religion in the end of the book.
Yeah, I know.
And he just kind of De Niro's character, the Irishman, he's like, he didn't quite understand why he's going to church and all this stuff, and he just kind of looks at him like, you'll understand, and it's like, then when he starts to realize, he's coming to the end of his life, he wants to make amends for all the terrible things he's done. It's a really great thing in the book.
And he's with the priest at the end.
Yeah, and they really nailed it in the movie, I think, without explaining it too much.
Dude, I agree. And also, I think another thing is people are like, well, we don't need to hear another gangster movie from an old white guy. This was happening, especially when woke was really taking a grip. Well, it's one friend, but it scarred me for life. And I was like, wait a minute. This is an artist who's been feeding us the greatest works of cinema for 30 years. And now you're going to suddenly call him an old white guy. But my real point is that Marty he's made a movie about what it's like getting old. I mean, that's what The Irishman is. And, we know the CGI is a little funky because they were struggling and they're old guys and they don't know how to use the new technology. But it doesn't matter. The intention and the storytelling is all there. And I think of all people, Scorsese has a right to make a movie about getting old. That's what was so beautiful. I felt they were all grappling with that. And then they went on to make another masterpiece afterwards. So good for them.
Yeah.
They'll be fine. Never mind the chattering classes.
I'm glad to hear this, though, because I see a lot of hate for it. I think it's a great movie, and I'm glad that you agree.
Yeah, I do.
Kind of forgot how good Pesci was.
Yeah, it's awesome to see him come back.
I mean,
you kind of forget,
This is the thing. That's the other thing is and De Niro. But I want to stay on Pesci. You're absolutely right. It's an amazing performance. Invisible because he's not saying, what? Am I funny? Am I funny?
Oh yeah. You're waiting for that.
We love these guys for the histrionics, but or their antics, whatever the word is. But the thing is he's so good and in command, and as you say, just getting. I don't know. I agree. I think it's Pesci's finest hour.
It is really. Yeah, I just want to see more of the guy now. Like,
yeah. Although they had to beg him. It's so beautiful. Yeah, that's the other thing. Marty's always begging everybody, like Bob the Butcher is.
Oh, yeah, that's another.
Only because I guess he sent Leo out to snag the big fish and bring in Daniel Day. But anyway, it's all beautiful. Those guys are so cool. I mean, they're not just filmmakers. They're somehow, well, at least to my mind, their local community go up with, and what the fuck are they gonna do next? They're so badass.
Yeah,
they're badass.
And De Niro's character in Killers of the Flower Moon, that's like such an evil character, and he's like plays it so well because he's like this charismatic guy, but when you start to really think about it, like this guy's just pure evil, you know.
Well, that's why I think that's the best movie of the year, because it really is a portrait of what's wrong with America, or just how deep that assumption is of, and you know, racism makes it seem topical. It's not that. It's just that some things that there's just an assumption that some people deserve everything, and also it's like, I'm sure De Niro loved the Indians the way you love your cattle, but you're gonna kill them eventually because they serve you a purpose, you know. And that's what that character is so sinister. Oh yeah, it's a great portrait of the rot in America, which isn't pervasive, but that the basic assumption that we have to be aware of, you know, this kind of
and it's not even just good enough to be wealthy, it's like to even be more wealthy.
And also, and you know, Leo keeps saying, I love that money, and you're like, what are you talking about? What are you saying? You know, I mean, money is just an exchange in order to get something else. He's not saying I love a big house, it's just I love money. So it's like you're saying, Neo, it's just like I just want more of it. So those are the things, and you have to be cautious if the country's dialogue is geared into that, then we're in a problem. And then you look at a period piece that suggests it's been there all along. You're like, oh darn.
It's so funny because you have people that are you know, bordering on poverty, lower income people that look to these moguls as like, oh, someday I can be that. And it's no, because this person is taking advantage of you to stay there and keep you there. So giving you this fantasy that you're going to get to be that way.
It's the great contradiction, like the no money person saying, you know, no taxes, you know, don't tax the rich. And you're like, wait, why? And they're like, someday I'll be rich. And you're like, okay. Okay.
Hold your breath on that one.
Yeah. Oh dear, what a corny little country we're in. Let's see how we do. We got some scary stuff ahead.
Yeah. So, will there be a physical release for Blackout?
You better believe it. I put it in my fucking contract.
Oh, okay.
I don't care if 7 people buy it. Those are 7 people I want to get to know. But I really believe in that, because I also make making ofs, and I like the whole fanfare. And it's funny you mentioned it. Speaking of killers, I mean, I'm almost obsessive. I go on the internet all the time and say, when is the Blu-ray coming out? And it is true that I'm in it, so I want to sort of have that as a little trophy. But I bought The Irishman. Of course, it's sitting there on Netflix. I watch it on Netflix quite often, just like dip in. But the box is important to me, and I can't stand not having the Killers box on the shelf. So I do care about Blu-rays for all those reasons. But, you know, it's the other thing. You have a shelf, and a lot of people will listen to me and they'll go, yeah, well, we grew up, we don't have a lot of room, Larry, and so we did lose our shit now, or you know, get rid of our boxes. I get it. But for me, it's like a bookshelf where you can just scan the books and you absorb all those ideas in a flash. You don't have to read them, God forbid, but if they're books you care about or have read. And same with movies, it's such a nice reminder of like, these are the ones I care about. These are the ones on my shelf. I've seen other great movies, but these are the ones I'm sort of highlighting, and they're a guide to me. So it's a book of poems or this or that, same vibe. Anyway, that's my thing. Yes, I think it's a fall release though, which I don't mind.
Sure. Well, will there be a commentary track or anything? I'm a fan of commentary track.
Yes, I definitely will do that. In fact, it's funny because I read some reviews and I get so annoyed, and I'm like, "Fuck you! Where you hear the commentary?" So I'm gonna have a commentary. So it's gonna be a Blu-ray that's gonna have 20 commentary tracks, and each one I'm going to be yelling at an individual review.
That's the balls. I love it.
This one's for you, Mac. You said this scene didn't work. Fuck you.
You sold me a copy.
I'm holding you to that. I want the Larry rebuttal on these.
That's right, the rebuttal. That's awesome. Blackout, the rebuttal Blu-ray.
Well, obviously, I know you're kidding around stuff, but do reviews. How do they affect you?
No, go
on. How do reviews affect you?
Look, I understand, like for Blackout, there's a lot of love, so that's really a relief, because at first you just want to know, like, because I'm fairly isolated. There's something about where I am in my career. I tried for many, many decades to fit into Hollywood and get the big gigs and all of that, but now I'm kind of like, you know what? I'm winding down. I'm going to do my mustard, or it's all these weird, eccentric things that I'm just doing. And I can work with a small amount of money. And so we're going to try to bring that project home. Obviously, it'd be amazing to have a final chapter where suddenly I get more money. All I'm getting at is this. So then, if you're so isolated, then you're curious by the reviews, like, did anybody get it? And so it did matter. I premiered at Fantasia, and we got a lot of nice support. But then, and then some of the bad reviews that always land on a pun, like, this werewolf film didn't bite. And you're like, okay, that's fine. They're not into it. And then they're going to just do that. But then there are some that get under your skin. It's kind of interesting. Like if they really miss the mark and you're like, wait a minute, that's not true. Like they say a performance was bad, it wasn't. They're like, that's weird. So, it also depends what side of the bed you got off on. But I'm not one of these guys that's going to say, I never read reviews. Because, I'm also a businessman and a producer, and I'm like, this matters. This is, when I was young, I had a movie called Habit, and I had a week run at a New York theater. That was a big deal. I got it myself. I didn't have a distributor. And then the New York Times came out and they said, Habit is anemic, or some stupid pun. And like this reviewer, he usually reviewed children's movies. And it's just like the whole thing was a bad fit. He didn't give me any credit for the effort. And I was like, this is exactly what's wrong with film criticism. He's just being douchey. And that was years ago. So imagine now. So all I'm getting at is that they cut my run in half. So it's a business thing too.
Oh.
And I want my tomato meter to be at least over 80. And now it just dropped because of two guys from the same site prattling on. I don't even know what it is. I can't really keep track of it. But I'm just saying, yeah, it does matter.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to say something with the genre that isn't the genre. I understand there are better horror movies, scarier horror movies. I love good horror movies. But then there's a bunch of repetitive stuff, and those are those. And then there's what I'm doing, which isn't that remarkable, but it's specific. And I just think it'd be nice to be able to have an expanse of response. Blah blah blah. Dude, let's face it, I don't like that.
I love Habit, by the way. It's amazing.
Yeah, I would have got a full week if you were in control.
But, honestly, we get a lot of like movies sent to us for the show, and to me, the worst stuff is something that's like so almost like they just made a movie because they had some money, and it's like this same. It's a haunted house movie. There's nothing. It's technically well made, but it's like something you've seen a million times. No one really looks like they're even having fun making it, and I know they would. But then I could see something that maybe technically is poorly made, but either they're having fun making it, or they're saying something original. And I'll look over all the technical faults of it.
Oh, definitely.
That's much more fun for me to watch.
Oh, that's always the case. And this is the thing about horror: is you don't need a movie star. You just need that. Especially when the agenda is something creepy or some kind of psychological thing, or somebody's working out their shit. That's something that's exciting about horror now. I think it's accepted that horror is a way of dealing with anxieties and fears and suppress this and that and identity problems and all of that. So it's what it always has been, but now overtly so. And I think it's a landscape for a lot of people to express something, and so you can feel there's real personal stuff going on in our movies, and or just I think Blair Witch, and the point is that there's ways. I mean, movies can get really creepy, and that's exciting. I never saw the movie that I was intrigued by, but I know it divided audiences. What's it called? Skinamarink?
Actually, oddly you say that. Jamie Hill from Skinamarink was in the chat earlier.
Oh, that's so sweet. Well, let me just say, without seeing it, that's my kind of picture. I mean, that is just, oh.
She plays the voice of the mom.
Nice. So, I just think that's so, I don't know, I get excited by that. But as you see, I haven't seen it because I can't be bothered to watch movies.
Yeah, but
I'm running out of time. I'm an old guy, man.
But it is better. There's like either people absolutely loved it or like, oh my god, support. And no one's just like, nah, whatever.
Yeah, but that's a good movie already.
Yeah, that's actually
you get a reaction like either way.
Yeah.
That I think sometimes, because if you look at you're talking about Rotten Tomatoes, and like a movie that's got like 40 to 60%, that doesn't necessarily mean it's not good. It's just like it's got a lot of people who really liked it and a lot of people who didn't like it.
Absolutely.
So it's not necessarily a great way to like, oh, is this movie good or not?
Yeah, and Rotten Tomatoes is silly anyway because there's a lot of the people that qualify are so random. So, and I know that I referenced it. That's because, as I say, I'm sort of struggling.
Yeah. I mean, it is the big thing that's out there. I mean, you even see it in trailers, like 90% fresh or whatever.
Like, I know we're separate from, because we are doing film-oriented things, but like IMDb, you can just go there and see 5 reviews the instant people can watch it, and they're all hateful. So I don't know who is like, they'll have a terrible
I do think,
rating.
like Larry was saying, it can hurt the business. I've had people who someone on our site gave a bad review to, and they said they actually asked me if I could take it off because it was going to hurt their distribution, and I did, because I mean it's not that important to me that it's on the website, and and they got like supposedly we're going to get good distribution, so that kind of thing I guess can hurt.
Power to those people then, they can.
Yeah, it's all tough, and you have to make your choices. I don't know if I would have. Yeah, look, it's always comes down to intention, and you just worry sometimes. Sometimes reviews are very sloppy, and they're like, "Is that really?" Your slapdash thing, as I say, with a lot of puns, werewolf puns or vampire puns, is like, have you considered the effort that I've made enough? I understand if it didn't land, and I can be definitely told this stuff didn't work, but just to slapdash, whatever,
And also, if you said it was someone who does like reviews kids movies, I mean, this is probably not a movie they're gonna even
in their
want to go
wheelhouse,
see anyway. So, I always say on the show, like, I love Taxi Driver and Basket Case maybe equally, but do I know one's like a better movie, whatever that means? Yeah, but I love both movies and I can watch both of them all the time.
Well, that's a huge point, especially us. I did this thing at Criterion Channel, or whatever it's called, The Closet. It's a pretty big honor to. Is that lighting better? I'm really concerned.
Yeah, it looks good. I think
the mood lighting is perfect.
Yeah, we're moving into the twilight of the interview. But I went to the Criterion place, and where am I telling this story? Well, all I'm saying is that they have Night of the Living Dead, and I'm sorry, that's just one of the greatest films ever made. No, it's not Taxi Driver, but it's where a movie lives in your memory, in your mind. So, Basket Case and Taxi Driver are very much the same. It doesn't mean, but we were sort of saying this earlier. It's not all about craft. It's about an intangible vibe, and so that's what's so cool about cinema. And I especially, that's why I love horror people, because we understand that mood and vibe is sometimes as much as all the refinements. And believe me, I'm a film snob as well. I like other things, but in the end, it's mood and vibe, even in the other things. So I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Are you gonna do? Are you doing any more Tales Beyond the Pale?
Oh, dude, we almost got another season launched, but my pal Glenn is making a movie, which is a blessing, and that's great, and it'll blow everyone's mind. It's nothing expected, and it is, talk about a long wait. He made a movie called I Saw the Dead, loved it from. That was years ago, but so all I'm saying is I'm kind of waiting around for Glenn, but we have a lot of scripts and artisans ready to go. That's such a beloved. So last night I had the strep, and so I watched the Irishman, and then finally it ended, and then I was like, what am I going to do now? And I started, rather than put on Killers, which would have taken me to dawn, I listened to some Tales, and that was a great pleasure, because I haven't heard them for a long time. Right?
Now, you have memories of them that are different from like the audience experience, but what are some of your favorite ones? I've heard all of them and super excited that you're going to make more of them. But what are your favorites?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, obviously you remember doing the live runs, because that was intense. I mean, you only record those performances once. Yeah. And the one I listened to is a minor one, but it's where I'm a crazy ventriloquist doll. Lester, and I'm playing Lester, and he's a really bad guy. And it was just fun to hear it, because I couldn't even remember. I wrote the thing, and it was the sequel to One of the Drugs. But anyway, I couldn't even remember what was going to happen. And I was like, wow, we really went for it. This is bananas.
2 or 3 parts in that story.
Glenn's is really eccentric, and it has Barbara Crampton, and they burn a baby in the fireplace. It's like, what am I listening to? And then I did a sequel, because that was just, we were at it was a Stanley Film Festival in those days, and so we just had the idea, like, oh, wouldn't that be cool if there was a sequel, like 100 years later, a new paranormal group. So as I say, mine is sort of riffing on the solid piece that Glenn had made, but it's pretty fun. And then the doll gets to come back, so that's good. But other ones, I mean, once my friend was killed in a car accident, and like 2 weeks later, we did a tale of it. It's one of my most extensive, profound tales. It's a I think I cried on stage, not to be performative. I was suppressing it, but this was such an incredible thing to be able to have a way to express oneself, and then Blackout was a tale at first, which is sweet, just a fraction of it.
Was it one with your friend about when the son and him?
Yes, in the car. It was called Who Killed Johnny Bernard? And it's just the trick of fate that my friend, and I don't need to go on about it, but he was T-boned. He was killed in the morning taking his son to work. And so I play on the idea that you're not sure because it's a radio play. That's the funny thing. You realize the format. So the son doesn't know how to drive, and the dad is taking him early to a soccer kit. And the son says, let me drive. So you don't know who's driving. And then there's an accident. And then I go into Hades, and he makes a deal with the devil and says, oh, just let it be me, not the son. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. It's actually really complicated, but it was based on the funeral and what my friend had done, was sailed on clipper ships and swam with whales. And so I weave it into this thing, and I think it works. It's really a sweet story. And and that is what happened. So my son, my friend, he was crushed and his son survived. So I proposed that in the story, you don't know who's driving. So that's sort of the mystery, and the idea is that he made a deal with this demon in the basement.
Wow.
And of course, we've talked about religion today, so here's a story about religion. Can you make that deal? Anyway, so it's a tale I'm proud of because it was an expression of something, but it actually turned into a rather complex novella, so to speak. But we've had so many great ones that have been considerably lighter than that, and yet always, many comrades and many actors bringing their A game. It's been a great series, and then the irony is everything of my company you never quite got to monetize because that was before Serial. If you remember that, that was when people were like, "Oh, listening to audio it was exciting." It was this fucking reality thing about the murder.
Yeah,
we didn't know, and we still don't know that guy did it. It was very compelling, but it's sort of when everybody realized, oh, audio can be addictive. And then, so all the while we were making these cool audio films. So one day we'll monetize it. I'll be 6 feet under.
Until then. They're fantastic. I was trying to sell Neal on it, and I was like, you have to hear this one. You have to hear this one. The Mattress King.
Yes.
Oh my God.
On Halloween, we go to a 12-hour Halloween marathon every year. And so on the drive up, we listen to that. And then oddly enough, it's 2 headline movies, and then the rest are surprise movies. And the last one was The House of the Devil. So it was like, our Halloween was bookended by Larry Fessenden.
Well, I have your email saying that.
Yeah.
That's so sweet. Yeah, well, that was written by Clay McLeod Chapman, who's so wonderful in our group because he is a novelist. And what could be sweeter than an actual man of letters? He writes scary novels. And he's done many other things, written some movies and so on.
Yeah.
It was super creepy and also hilarious.
Yeah, I love it.
Exactly. And that was live.
Yeah. It is amazing that they come together. I know everybody's a professional, but it's just so many moving parts and so much going on. And listening to it, I can only imagine how awesome it would be to see this happening all on stage, because I know that no one's physically performing, right?
No, well, that's what's cool is we're all just into the mic. It's actually very dry.
Yeah.
And yet, that's one of the things we say is to our fellow actors is you're just performing with the microphone. Don't look at your actor, which is the first rule of acting, is look people in the eye and react to them. It's like, no. Your scene partner is your microphone. So it's fun. It's a different technique. Yeah.
Do you video record them too? Just to save that part, or?
Sometimes, and for sure. And there's a great little documentary about Tales. I'll send you guys a link. It's
great.
just it's just season 2. I think we did live, and you get sort of a vibe what it was like. Vincent D'Onofrio and the recently passed what's his name? The guy with the bell. Angus.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't think Angus he never did a live one.
Oh, he didn't do a live one.
I know, but he did some beautiful ones in the studio. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. Good.
Who was the person who passed?
Oh, Mark Margolis.
Oh.
You remember him? He's in Breaking Bad.
Oh yeah, yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
The guy with the bell.
Is in Oz? He's been in a
yeah. He's been in the movie.
Yeah.
But Angus was a great guy. Did you know Angus very well, Angus Grimm?
Oh yeah, we met him on McKenna's for whatever, and then he did 4 or 5 movies with us, and was a dear friend to the end, the very end.
Yes.
Yeah. We're so lucky to have known him. And when people compare me to Roger Corman, I say, well, part of that is that we sort of dipped into the back catalog of actors and sort of invited them to do some of their last work with us, which is what Corman was doing.
Yeah.
So Angus was, of course, our dear friend and exemplary, right? So I would.
One of my favorite interviews Annabelle I did was with Angus, and he knew he didn't have much time left, and he was like, he's talking about, but he's very he was just happy with his life, and it sounds like it'll be sad, but it was actually really uplifting, I thought.
Yeah,
I agree. Now listen, speaking of end of times, I got 8% on my thing.
All right, one last question from Dave.
We're gonna let this lock out.
What's your favorite recent film, Larry? Horror or otherwise?
You know what I'm going to answer? All of Us Strangers. And it is like a horror movie. It's a very surreal movie. It's about a dude whose parents have died in a car accident, and he's trying to figure out his life. But the technique is like a horror film. So only because I feel rushed, that is my answer. I love that movie. I recommend it to your horror fans.
For that one too.
It's beautiful.
I don't want to forget this question. I've forgotten it all the way. Who did the pen drawing in Blackout? It's this long shot of the woods, and it's
nice.
So cool. It's in your movie. Who did it?
Check him out, John Mitchell. He worked for 2 years on all the paintings and drawings of the movie.
Wow.
And he invited me to sit for him as a painter. I mean, he liked my movie, so he said, "Will you come sit for me?" So I said, "Only if it's quick." So we did that, and we started talking, and then I invited him to do it. I think it's gonna go, dudes. Can I just say it's so sweet? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime.
Until next time, my friend.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on the next movie, so I hope to be back with y'all soon.
Definitely.
Anytime. Larry.
You're always an old friend coming back.
Love you guys.
Take care, Larry. We'll love it.
Take care of Hal. He's gonna outlive us all.
We're gonna will the show to Hal.
Exactly. Yeah.
We'll be dancing on our graves. All right.
Bye, Larry.
Bye. All right, that was amazing. Larry's the best.
Always.
He's still hearing us talking about how great he is. He's staying here, but.